Hey, welcome back to the shop. Thanks for stopping by. This week's video I'm going to turn a maple burl. It's a big old gnarly misshapen piece of wood that should have some really nice figure in it. It is roughly about 6.5 inches or so to bottom to top, and it's about 15 to 16 inches across. So I'm just going to make a nice void-filled bowl out of this one. So because of the nature of this burl having so much loose stuff on it and being so misshapen, it's a good chance for chunks to come off of it. So I'm wearing a full face shield with just my respirator, as you can see at the top of the screen there, so I'm not able to talk through as I turn, so we'll do this as voiceover. So just working with the bowl gouge right now to bring it into balance a little bit, knock some of the bark off the outside and get an idea of what I'm going to have. I just have the piece mounted between centers right now. I don't show all the stops and checks, but I stop quite often during the shaping of the outside just to see how much wood's exposed and trying to get the nicest look that I can get. So the tailstock was starting to get loose in the bark that's on the bottom, so I need to get that off. So I just took it off the lathe, took a hammer and chisel and knocked the little nub off the bottom. You'll see that it chipped out a little bit, but the bottom of the bowl is going to be concaved when it's finished, and so that's not going to be a problem. So I'm just taking my time now to get back in, centered up as closely as I could to what I had before I took it off. So I need to get to solid wood at the bottom so that I can turn this tenon on and reverse it and hold it in my 4-jaw chuck so that I can finish up the outside and hollow out the inside. Once I have the tenon the right size and the right shape, I can just take it off and put the 4-jaw chuck on. So you can see the bark that's on the face of this piece. That was the bark of the original tree. So the burl is just a growth that grows on the outside of a tree. And that bark that you see there was the actual tree, and everything that's on the right side of the screen is the burl that grew on the outside. It's like a tumor on a tree. Now I'm just working to bring this into balance and knock some of this extra off the top. A little peek at how things are shaping up. It's balanced pretty well there now, and you see there's a few cracks that are going to be turned out. And go back to the outside now just to kind of get a finalized shape on the outside. Here I'm just refining the shape and taking some tool lines out to eliminate as much sanding as I possibly can. And I did sand with the drill. There's lots of holes in this and voids. It's pretty near impossible to sand it by hand. And the outside's all finished up now. I'm just going back into the inside to hollow it out the rest of the way. And as I always try to do, I leave the center of the bowl in and work on that rim wall thickness while it's more stable. It gets less stable as you take the center out of the bowl. And as you can see, there's a lot of voids around the outside. You can see right through the lip of the bowl into the background. And so I'm trying to cut as carefully as I can to get the smoothest possible cut and save as much sanding as I can there. Put a little bit of a radius on the lip of the bowl now, as I always do as well, while it's stable as it's going to be. Need to be very careful at this stage so that you don't push too hard on your chisel and get it caught in that airspace, because you can shatter the wall of the bowl easily. Here I'm using a negative rate carbide tool just to clean the edges of that up and to get the wall thickness more consistent. The nice thing about bowls like this, where you do have voids in the sides, as you can see, you kind of get a cross cut of the wall thickness, so you can tell what your wall thickness is all the way down through. And you can see in the background that the inspector's popped in to see how things are going. Now I'm going to sand the inside of the bowl around the lip, just while I've got that center core in there for stability and strength. And I got that finished up here. Now I'm just back into coring out the center. Now this is just a natural Burl. It's not been stabilized or anything, but I've had it for almost 20 years and it's very dry and very, very hard. So it takes quite a bit of time to get the center out of these when they're like that. Plus with the grain in a Burl, it's very irregular, so it's a different cut than just normal wood. You can see that I'm going back and forth between a few different chisels here on the bottom. I'm just trying to get the best, cleanest cut that I can get, again to save sanding And sometimes the gouge works better depending on how that grain is, and sometimes the scraper works better. So now we get the center finished up and sanded out. I have it reversed on top of a faceplate held on with 6 spots of hot melt glue. And I'm just turning the bottom off, and as I said before when I was taking off that little nub with a chisel, just going to concave the bottom so it'll sit nice and flat. So now I've got it down as small as I can, and I've got the tailstock out of the way for the final time. And I'm just going to turn this off enough so that it's concave in the bottom. I always check to make sure that my glue is still got a good hold on as soon as I take off that tailstock before I do any turning. And I just check it with the straight edge of the chisel. Now that I get the shape that I want on the bottom, I can sand it by hand because it is solid wood, there's no voids in it. And I always sand the bottoms to the same finish as I do the rest of it. I think this was done up to 1000 grit. And I put a little bit of oil on this one because I had a couple of spots in it that were sanding out hard. It just softens the grain up a little bit and makes the sand easier. You can see how nice the grain is in this burl when there's just flame going everywhere and lines and curls going all over the place. It's really nice wood. Now I'm just separating the hot melt glue off the faceplate with a chisel, being very careful not to stab the side of my bowl. And this is just Danish oil. So I put a really good coat on, let it soak in, and I put a second coat on, let it dry, and then I buffed it after the fact. And I'll put some stills up at the end here. And I just want to thank everyone who subscribed to the channel. I really appreciate it. If you like this video and you haven't subscribed, please consider doing so. And we'll see you next time.